Yeah, no, they've been good.
All right, guys, thanks for coming to spring practice press conference number 1. Again, we're going to keep it to one question, and we'll start in the front row with Dave Biddle. Dave, go ahead.
Ryan, with all the disclaimers, first day of spring, how do you envision Legend Bay's role this year?
We'll have to see. Just day one out there, he's starting at running back. You know, he played quarterback in high school, so he has a tremendous skill set, and he's dynamic when the ball's in his hands. You know, we see him as somebody that could play running back and also move out to wide receiver. Sort of like, you know, I wasn't here with Curtis Samuel, but I watched a lot of film when he was here. He kind of reminds me of that style of player. Remember when Xavier Johnson was here, you know, he could play running back or move out to wide receiver. I think we're trying to get a feel for that now because really he played a lot of quarterback in high school, so we're trying to see what best fits him when he gets moving. So today was just a start. You can see him flash, but he's got a lot of football to learn. But it was good to get these guys out here, 51 new faces, so we got a lot of film to watch and get to work on.
Right behind him, Doug Lambrese.
Ryan, looking a little more big picture here because we haven't talked to you in a while. As you look back, your defense was so good last year. Led the nation in fewest points per game. Didn't create as many turnovers, didn't have as many tackles for loss or sacks or that kind of thing. As you would just evaluated the defense from last year, did you think like, yes, that's how we want to play defense? Or is there any part of, you know what, we'd like to create maybe a little more havoc defensively?
We spent a lot of time on ball disruption and creating turnovers. I think we would all say we'd like to create more turnovers. It's something that, you know, Matt and our whole defensive staff believes in. And so, you know, there's always a give and take when it comes to like how aggressive you want to get to sort of force the action, but there's also just the idea of you know, punching at the ball and creating PBUs, tip balls, you know, sacking the quarterback, those types of things. So all that comes into play and all part of the discussion. I think with this group, because you know we have lost you know, some pieces from the defense. We'll have to look to see, you know, if our percentages change on how much we pressure or not pressure. But then, you know, you also put yourself at risk of explosive plays the more aggressive you get. So there's a give and take. But I can tell you there's a huge emphasis to create turnovers like there is every year. And, you know, we jumped on it today and we'll continue to do that.
Right next to him, Bill Lance.
Ryan, on the offensive line, how much shuffling maybe do you anticipate in the spring to try to figure out what guys can play? Like, can Phil potentially play guard? Can Ian play guard? Might Austin move between tackle and guard? Like, what do you think that will look like?
Yeah, we're trying to get as many reps as we can. Right now, I think there was over 110 guys on the field today. And when you're doing that, that's typically like a preseason practice. So there's going to be times where, you know, we want to get a couple fields going and get as many reps as we can. When that's the case, then we can move some guys and interchangeable pieces, which is something philosophically we felt was always important to be able to do that. You see Josh Padilla can play guard or center. You know, you've seen Carson play multiple positions. But you know, it's something that we want to see if we can get the best 5 out there. But then 6, 7, and 8 typically have some versatility in there. So, yeah, we want to get you know, get Ian, you know, some guard work and some tackle work. You know, Austin will mostly be at tackle, although we've seen him play guard before. You know, Gabe will mostly be a guard. Josh will play some center and some guard. He's probably going to be limited for a decent amount of the spring, but it's a good opportunity to get some young guys in there, get Carter going. We got a lot of guys in there that are going to be fighting for reps, but there'll be enough to go around. And yeah, we're going to try to find the right 5 that gives us the best chance to win, and then build depth off of that. So to answer your question, there'll be a lot of interchanging of guys, especially there'll be opportunity. We didn't do it today because we were inside, but we'll quickly go outside and start to get some 2 fields going to get as many reps as we can to evaluate what we have coming out of the spring.
Still tackle and guard too.
Right now he's just tackle, but it's worth a discussion for sure.
In the back on the aisle, Cameron D. Robinson, the Athletic.
Ryan, when you look at, when you evaluated things this offseason and trying to look at what you want to do with an offense coordinator, obviously brought in Arthur, what do you like so much about having 2 NFL coordinators? And then kind of obviously Chip was that guy for you, and then you brought in Matt on defense. What do you like so much about having NFL guys?
Not only that, but former head coaches in the NFL. So when you come with that perspective, it's, you know, we always say, like, you know, you learn so much when you when you take on a new role. And I think, the managing of their staffs on their side of the ball is critically important. You're seeing Matt do that now with some of the staff, hires and changes that we're making on his side of the ball. And then, as Arthur's starting to install some of the things that he has done in the past, there's a system in place for it. And, it's not the NFL, but, it's pretty close. The hash marks are different, the guys are a little bit different, but there's a lot of things that carry over here. So that's been good. And it's ultimately, we've talked about this many times, it allows me an opportunity to kind of step away and really dive into everything else and just be more present in the building, with the players, with the staff. Certainly with, the NIL stuff in terms of raising money, asking questions, it's a different mindset. Now that being said, we're going to get in there in the film and figure out what are the things we've done in the past that fit what we're doing, and what are the things that, moving forward we want to kind of look at and change to build an identity, because that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to build an identity that carries throughout the entire season. And when you have somebody like Arthur who's been through it before, he's been through playoff games, he's played the long season in the NFL, you have to kind of build towards the end of the season, and that's the goal here for us, because when you think about the way things are structured now, you got to be building towards the end of the season. Now, next year with some of the games that we play, you got to start right from the jump on it too, and you got to play throughout the length of the season. And I think it's an opportunity for us to continue to get stronger throughout the season, get challenged in certain areas, so that when it comes time to play in December and January, we're going to be salty because we've been through the fire. And so having some experienced guys like that running the offense and defense is going to be something that we count on to pay dividends in the end.
Fourth row in the middle, Dan Hope, 11 Warriors.
Ryan, just to follow up on that, what did you learn maybe just from last year about, working with Brian Hartline, somebody who was a first-year offensive coordinator, and how much did that kind of give you reason to want to bring in someone like Arthur who had that experience, who could be kind of that head coach of the offense?
Well, every year is a different dynamic. So whether it's the guys on the offense or the guys on the defense, and what you have, and everything comes into play. Recruiting comes into play, dynamics come into play, and so every year we try to do what we can to figure out what went on the year before or the year before that, and try to project what we need in that moment. And Arthur seemed like the right fit. The other part that was really different for us is when they changed the rule in terms of number of coaches. We now have Cortez coaching the wide receivers, but we also have Arthur as the offense coordinator. So it's a +1 there, and that was a change. And so that's a little bit more like an NFL operation, just in terms of how we structured that. And I got to give Ross and the board credit for allowing us to do that, because that was a whole nother position, and knowing how important that is. And we spent a lot of time talking about development here and how we develop our guys. So if I'm a recruit and I come in and I have Patricia on offense and Arthur on offense and Matt on defense, I know I'm going to get, coached like an NFL team, like an NFL organization. And if you come and watch practice like a lot of recruits did today, or you guys got a chance to see some of that's an NFL practice right there. So that, guys know that they're going to have an opportunity to develop and be ready to step into these roles. And that's a big part of recruiting nowadays, because it has changed. NIL is a big part of recruiting, but still these guys want to get developed. And for guys who want to look at the long-term goals and where they want to be in 5 to 10 to 20 years down the road, I think it gives us an edge because of our history, what we've done, and the type of people that's in the building. So all of that comes into play when making these hires.
Third row, Spencer Holbrook.
Yeah, Ryan, as you were talking to Matt throughout the offseason and the different options that he had in front of him, what were those conversations like, and how big of a relief was it when he said, yeah, I'm coming back? But then also, he's been here for a year now. How have you seen him maybe settle in? Obviously, he was pretty comfortable with it last year, but settling into the college game and another offseason with him.
Well, when you get around Matt, you quickly learned how important family is to him and relationships are to him. You guys have seen that. And to see his personality come out, to see the side of Matt that we all know has been excellent, and with the staff, with the players. But Ohio State's a great place to be. The city of Columbus, is tremendous. It's a great place to have a family. He has a young family, and his family, loves it here. The community has embraced them, which was important. And so everyone's at different points of their careers. But when you have a young family, like, that matters. You take all things into consideration. You think about, just, the way that things are set up on campus medically, and just, the healthcare, when, all the different things that come in with being at Ohio State. You get a chance to coach some of the best players in the country. You get to be around a program that right now has great people in it. And you start to add all these things up. I think he would tell you it's a great place to go to work every day. Does he have options? Yes. Did he have options? Yes. But, I think he found a lot of joy in making an impact on these guys' lives at a different point in their lives than what he was used to in the NFL. And so, we were able to work something out to keep him here, and we knew that was important. The guys, really enjoy working with him and learning from him. And then the other part of it is his impact on the staff and some of the younger coaches that are in that room, so that we can continue to build that room and build the strength of the coaching staff on that side of the ball.
Front row, Austin Ward.
Ryan, you've still not had an opportunity to have a second-year starting quarterback a ton throughout your career.
Yeah.
So obviously that's a benefit, but what is the mission for Julian, or what has it been going into the start of spring camp?
Yeah, so really it was Justin and it was CJ, and now Julian's the only other one, that I've had, again, going back a long way. So, the one thing that, Arthur, the minute he spent some time with Julian, he just, he's really intelligent. He can process a lot of high levels of information. And I think we've shared that before. It's one of the things that jumps out about Jules to me. And so, there's certain areas that now he's got to take the next step. Like we say, level up. I was talking to actually Matt about this the other day. He was explaining how, growing up, we used to have Mario Brothers, and, there was, like, you would go through all the different levels, and if you lost, you started back at level 1, and you had to figure out and solve what the problem was to get to the next level. Now, with the video games, you have to level up. You don't really go back to start. We just continue to level up. Well, it's kind of so I tried to hit that with these guys the other day. Like, we all have to level up with our football IQ. So whether it's someone like Aaron Rodgers who's been in the league for decades, or it's, Tavian St. Clair who's in year 2 of the program, or anybody within the program, they have to level up in terms of their football IQ. And the more information you have, the slower the game goes. And so that's a big thing for him, and finding the right things that we can do to help get us into the right play and all the things that come with that. And the other part, as we know, is, just in terms of understanding where the ball comes out, his strength, and as we all know, is that, the ball comes out accurately in throwing the football, but making an impact with his legs when appropriate. We know that that's the X factor that has to show up this year, and he's aware of that and been working hard in the offseason.
Front row, Rob Aller.
Yeah, like you said, so many new faces. Not necessarily a concern, but where are you curious in terms of position groups? What do you have your eye on, or individuals within those groups?
Yeah, I think it's a great question, because with 51 new guys, there's a lot of guys to look at and figure out what we have. But the thing that we really tried hard to do was, although it's 51 new guys, there's a lot of experience. So when you talk about Earl Little and James Smith and Quay Russo and these guys have, John Walker, they played football before. So experience-wise, we're actually okay. It's just new within Ohio State, and everything's a little bit different when you come to Ohio State. They'll all tell you that. But yeah, so quickly going through the positions, running back right now, we're missing Isaiah and Bo. So, Jacoby is somebody who's played a little bit of football, but not a ton. You have Turbo, Favor, and Legend. That's a young group right there. So they got to really step up. The first day was a little rough, so we got work to do there. Tight ends is an interesting position because we have Mason and Hunter coming in. Bennett will be out for the spring, and so Nate's really going to have to step up. Max LeBlanc has had a really good offseason. Looking to see how that group can continue to grow and build. Nick's a young guy that has done a nice job in the weight room so far, but it's hard to play as a young tight end. So whether it's 11, 12, we'll have to see and see what we can handle there. At wideout, we're as deep as we've been in a while there. Interesting group because, obviously Jeremiah leads the way, but Brandon's right there with them. And then you have Kyle and Devin, who both come in, had really good practices today, just for day one, seeing a couple of veteran guys go out there and make plays, know exactly what they're doing. Pros already, you can just see it. Now we'll see when the pads come on what that looks like. we also have, some other guys pushing in those areas, like Phil Bell and Dez, but then you have the young guys, and they're coming too. So it's fun to watch them. They flashed. They didn't quite know what they were doing all day today, but they were working at it. And Chris hit a big post. Quay hit an over. Brock had a couple nice plays. I mean, all those guys have bright futures here. All three of them in different ways. So it's a deep group. Offensive line is as deep as we've been, just in terms of being able to put guys on the field. Defensive line, there's a lot of new faces in there, whether it's guys who are in the program who haven't played a lot of football or new guys that are transfer guys that come in. So to be determined there. In the back end, deep, certainly missing Caleb and missing IGB is going to be, missing Lorenzo is going to be a big loss. But seeing Terry in there, seeing Earl come in there, Leroy's had a great offseason, Jalen's really done well. Then you have some really good young guys coming up too with Blaine and some of them. Corner, same thing, deeper than we've been. And then at linebacker, having Christian there as a veteran guy with Peyton. Riley will be out for the spring, but TJ's really had a chance to step up. Sincere. Garrett Stover's had a good offseason. So I guess it's a combination of seeing what the new transfers are like within our program, but also seeing some of those younger guys have to step up.
Is there
Go ahead. Is there one group?
is there one?
No.
Okay.
No. Maybe in about 5 practices after seeing it all and evaluating it, have a better feel. But I feel like right now, most positions are in decent shape. I would say running back probably right now is my biggest concern. Yeah, I would say. So we'll have to see.
Coach, following up on that, with half the roster being new, veteran guys from the portal and everything, how big of a challenge is that? Because this is kind of uncharted water for you guys, and you got 15 practices. The season's coming, it's going to come fast. How important is it to get everybody up to speed, and is that the biggest challenge?
Yeah, I feel like we did a really nice job. Mick Marotti and his staff are just, I'm not with everybody across the country. I don't get a chance to see what they do, but if they're better than what Mick does in that room, I tip my hat to him, because I can't imagine there's anybody better. What Mick does in there with his staff is tremendous. And we had a huge champions meeting yesterday, and the growth that these guys made physically was tangible. The work ethic that they showed, but then really brought everybody together. And again, with half the team being new, there's a camaraderie being built right now that's important. And true love and brotherhood is when, your brother makes a play and you're just as happy for him as if you made the play yourself. The guy that I use all the time is Travion. When Quinshon would score a touchdown, he was more happy for Quinshon than he was for his own self. And what happened, that all came back to him in the end. And if we have that same type of mentality into the season, then we'll have a chance. But so much of that happens in the weight room. But I told the guys right here, I said, you only got 14 left. You only got 15 in the spring. So these things go fast. We got to do a great job on the off days of making the corrections, but also spending time in the building and connecting with the guys on the team, because, to your point, the connection of the team will be important, which we know in today's game is something that is different than what it's been in the past. Usually, you would, grow up with these guys in year 3 and year 4, and you've been with them for 2 and 3 and 4, sometimes 5 years. That's not really the case anymore because of the turnover we're seeing, because of the structure, everything. So it is a big challenge, but I really like this team. I like the guys. I like their energy. I like their competitiveness, their seriousness. It's a mature group, but we haven't been together very long, so we got work to do.
Front row, Joey Kaufman.
Ryan, you mentioned the no longer limits on staff sizes, so you can
Yeah.
have 12 position coaches and coordinators. You couldn't years
Yeah.
ago. It was limited to 10, but there's still limits on how many guys can actually go on the road.
Yeah.
Recruiting, how are those recruiting rules for guys going to be defined? Do some guys not have to go on the road? And
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, so Arthur just right now wouldn't be somebody that's not designated to go on the road. I know that there is conversation about maybe, depending on what part of the season you're in, being able to designate different people within your program. I think that's an interesting concept that I think probably will end up happening somewhere along the line. But as of right now, because of our numbers, he would be non-designated.
Is there anybody else who's not designated?
I think otherwise all the other position coaches are, so they would be part of the 10. Yeah.
Wouldn't
Matt's on the road. Yep.
We'll go over here to Dave Holmes.
Yeah, Ryan, with a roster like this, you said 51 new, 112 out there. Could you name every jersey number first?
Oh yeah. Well, jersey number, no.
So that's what Matt, is there a
no.
rep today where you look across the field, you're like, I don't even know who that is doing that rep? Does that happen on day one?
No, I know, but But the jersey numbers is something that's very, that gets contentious fast, you know? And so Quinn's right in the middle of that, and that's a big matrix on how we figure out who has what jersey and when they ask for it, their seniority, if they've done right by Coach Mick, if they're champions. And then, you know, people put in for jersey numbers like a year in advance. When he leaves, I'm going to be ready for that one. And then you have to figure out special teams and if there's going to be any kind of issue with two guys being on the field at once. So when you see a guy out there for the first time, like just, you know, Riley wasn't practice today, but I saw him in 5 today, and I'm used to seeing him in 20. I'm like, who's this guy, number 5? And so anyways, yeah, you have to get used to it, but it doesn't take long to be out there. We get so many reps, you just get a feel for it.
Got time for a couple more. Joe Nugent?
Over the weekend, Ted Carter announced he decided to resign. Certainly a lot of reaction through campus. He's been around the football team. What did you think of that?
Yeah, no, you know, we thank Ted for his support of Ohio State football for the last couple of years, and you know, that's really, you know, my thoughts on it right now.
Go to the front row, Bill or Bills.
When, you know, you lost 20 or 31 transfers, I think it was, got some veteran guys. How much was a change in philosophy, if that's the right word? You guys had a great regular season, didn't have a lot of adversity, probably when the playoff and postseason happened, that would kind of hit you in the head a little bit.
Yep.
How much of that was a conscious decision? Okay, we have a fixed pool of NIL, that kind of thing. Let's pay for proven production. Let's get the Terry Moores, the Earl Littles, those kind of guys. And that's a new philosophy. And is that true? And how do you mold those guys back, you know, to get that kind of brotherhood feeling again?
No, I think it's a great question because I think every year is a little different, but a part of what you just said was, you know, I don't think anybody realizes how many guys here over the last, you know, 7 years have left after 3. I don't know if maybe there's a program that's had more guys leave after 3 years. Maybe someone can do some research, but you know, we've had a lot, and really the guys who are all being considered like first rounders right now, you know, I consider Sonny a 3 and done because of the reclassification, but when you look at Carnell, when you look at Caleb, when you look at K-Mac, when you look at you know, Arvell and Sonny, those guys are really 3-year guys. So you're losing all of that experience. Now, if they were 4th and 5th year seniors, you know, naturally, you just see some guys step into those roles. But when you lose those guys, man, it makes a big difference. And 2 years ago, when you saw, you know, Jack and JT and Tyleek and Cody and, you know, some of these guys, Lathan, come back, they were already within the program, and we were veteran that way. When you see guys who are going to be seniors walk out the door, the first thing you got to do is you got to get some more veteran guys in that room, or else you're just constantly young. You know, I felt like we were a little young this year, quite honest. And so when you go through it and you get some more senior guys in there, it's just a different approach. And we felt like we needed that. So I think when you look at the guys who actually left and the guys that came in, I think there's a significant, you know, matrix out there, or you know, some sort of analytic that shows, you know, in terms of how our number of games played and age gap went up maybe a year and a half or 2 years. And that was by design, for sure, because we felt like when those guys were walking out the door, we better replace them with some more veteran guys. Now, that being said, they have to be the right guys, and they have to fit what we do and believe in our culture. So all those things are into consideration. Now, each year it's a little different based on, you know, what you have in the room.
Got time for 2 more. We'll go over to the left. Jake Trotter.
Yeah, Ryan, speaking of Caleb, we haven't had a safety go in the top 10 of the draft in a decade. Why do you think that's been the case, and then why might Caleb be different? And then also Arthur oversaw some really imposing rushing attacks in the NFL. Yeah, how do you foresee that impacting your offense?
Yep. You know, I don't know the answer to the first question. You know, I don't know. It'd be interesting to see like how many of those guys, the numbers wise, because I don't know the answer to it in the last 10 years, like by position, how many guys actually go in the first round? You know, how many safeties go in the first round? Yeah, so I don't know if that has anything to do with it, but, you know, our expectation is always to have the best in the country. You know, I remember when James was in here, I said, you know, the number one job of the linebacker coach here at Ohio State is to make it linebacker you, and look what he's doing, you know, it's pretty cool. But that's what it's about. Like, if you're coaching the quarterbacks, it should be quarterback you. If you're coaching the O-line, it should be O-line you. You're at Ohio State. So, yeah, it should be safe to you. So we'll keep working on that to get that fixed and maximize that position. But I think Matt's doing a great job, and you're seeing it's building momentum year after year after year, which is great to see. Go to your second question with Arthur, with the run game. Yeah, Arthur is very intelligent. He's been around it before. He knows how to run the football. He sees it that way, but he also really knows how to throw the football well. I mean, he's when you look at where he's had his meetings in all of his career, he's always with the quarterbacks. But he was an offensive lineman at heart, so he knows how it all comes together. And the way that he teaches the quarterbacks too in the run game is he's the run game coordinator, and he's making the checks based on what's going on, and and it has to equate numbers. But he really has a great feel for the passing game as well. And it was interesting just listening to him. He's got a great history. He's a great storyteller. And even just like in the last year, working with Aaron Rodgers and his background and all the things that he learned from him, so it's been great to be around him and throw different ideas off of him, and him also learn the college game, because it is a little bit different. And then I know the guys in that room are learning a lot from him.
All right, last question to Tim May.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, how do you get Julian to run more, whatever, with that emphasis and stuff, but I guess if I have one question, what would you like to see come out of a possible imminent, some people think it's imminent, an executive order from the president to kind of straighten things out for want of another term? What would you like to see be in that executive order if you had been on that panel the other day with the other 100 guys?
Yeah, I think when I think about this, it's you probably heard me say something like this before, is that to me it all starts with the structure, and until we build a structure where we can enforce some of the rules that are in place, we're constantly just putting Band-Aids over issues, and they get ripped off. And college football for a long time has been built, okay, a rule is there, what's the loophole around it? And I think we all know right now that the rules are not being very well enforced across the country. And my concern, more than anything, is that we're raising a young group of college coaches that, see it that way. That's becoming their normal. And that's not the way that I came up in this game. I mean, we used to, our phone logs and everything had to be exactly right, and the school contacts. And, if the NCAA came in, man, you better have your stuff in order, because there's going to be hell to pay. And I can't sit here and tell you that's the case anymore. And so, to me, that's the first thing that has to be addressed. And then once we get that addressed, we can deal with everything else. But until then, we're certainly going to try to, or we're going to have a situation where people are going to try to get around the rules. And when people talk about, the NFL and college, I think the biggest difference is, we all know, there's a lot of differences, but the biggest one is we recruit in college, they draft in the NFL. It's a big deal. And so, having those things in place are critical in terms of keeping the integrity of the sport. So there's a lot of great ideas. There's a lot of things that came up that are really worth a debate, and I think it's interesting conversation. But to me, that's the number one thing that has to happen, and then we can go from there.
Coach, thank you very much.
All right, guys, thanks. Yep.